Your hair follicles aren't dead. They're asleep, trapped behind a wall your body built without asking you. If you've tried oil after oil, supplement after supplement, and your hairline hasn't moved an inch, it's not because those remedies don't work. It's because something is blocking them from ever reaching the follicle in the first place. Stick with me, because by the end of this video you'll understand the one root cause that ties almost all of this together, and it's not what most people think. Let's start with the wall itself, scar tissue. Underneath the skin on top of your head, inflammation slowly turns into hardened, fibrous tissue. Think of it like a callus forming deep under the surface. This scar tissue tightens around tiny blood vessels, cutting off the oxygen and nutrients your follicles need to function. Studies looking at biopsies from people with pattern hair loss found that the majority of them, up to 7 out of 10, had this kind of fibrosis around their follicles. That's a huge number, and it explains why so many remedies feel like they don't work. They're not the problem. The wall is. Here's the part that should give you hope. Your follicles are still alive under there. Researchers studying bald scalps found dormant stem cells still present, even in areas that look completely smooth. They're not gone. They're hibernating, like seeds waiting for the right conditions. The question isn't, how do I grow new follicles? It's how do I wake the ones I already have? Now let's talk about what's actually waking or keeping asleep those follicles. You've probably heard of DHT, a byproduct of testosterone that gets blamed for almost all hair loss. And yes, DHT plays a role. But DHT isn't the starting point. There's something further upstream that drives the whole process, insulin resistance. Here's how it connects. When your cells stop responding properly to insulin, your pancreas compensates by pumping out more and more of it. High circulating insulin does a few things that are terrible news for your hair. First, it narrows blood vessels, restricting circulation to the scalp, the same blood flow your follicles depend on. Second, it drives chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout the body, including right around your hair follicles. And third, that inflammation is exactly what builds the scar tissue we just talked about. So insulin resistance doesn't just sit in the background, it actively constructs the wall. There's an added twist. Hair follicles run almost entirely on glucose. They can't use fat or ketones for fuel the way muscles can. So your first instinct might be, great, I'll eat more carbs to feed my follicles. But that's backwards. If your cells are resistant to insulin, pouring in more glucose doesn't help. The glucose can't get where it needs to go, and the extra insulin just deepens the resistance. It's like trying to unlock a door with a key that's already jammed in the lock, and instead of removing it, you keep pushing harder. A case study from a few years ago captured this perfectly. A man with classic pattern baldness had normal blood sugar, but his fasting insulin levels were sky high. He also had a dark, velvety patch of skin on his neck, a classic sign of insulin resistance. Doctors gave him a single medication to address his insulin levels, no topical treatments, no hair products at all. Within 6 months, his hair grew back, just from correcting the insulin problem. Now, before you go thinking DHT is the enemy and you need to crush it completely, don't. DHT plays an important role in things like libido, facial hair, and even mood regulation, including a natural anti-anxiety effect. People who aggressively suppress it with medication often report mood changes and emotional flatness. The goal isn't to wipe out DHT, it's to bring it back into balance by fixing what's driving it too high in the first place: insulin resistance. So, what does fixing insulin resistance actually look like in practice? 2 things make the biggest difference. Lowering carbohydrate intake reduces the constant demand on your pancreas, giving your cells a chance to become sensitive to insulin again. And intermittent fasting adds another layer. It triggers a process called autophagy, where your body clears out damaged cellular material. That cleanup process appears to play a role in waking up dormant structures, including hair follicles. Together, these 2 habits work on the root cause, not just the surface. But here's where it gets really practical, because fixing insulin resistance is a longer-term project, and you also want to deal with that physical wall of scar tissue directly. The method with the most research behind it for this is called microneedling. Microneedling uses a small roller covered in fine needles that create tiny, controlled punctures in the scalp. Don't worry, this isn't as intense as it sounds, and the depth involved is small, generally somewhere around 1 to 1.5 millimeters. What happens next is the interesting part. Your body responds to these micro-injuries by breaking down old, hardened collagen, the scar tissue, and rebuilding it as healthier tissue. In the process, it essentially opens a temporary door, allowing whatever you apply afterward to actually penetrate down to the follicle instead of sitting uselessly on the surface. Timing matters here. After microneedling, you'll want to wait roughly a day or two before applying anything, since the scalp needs time to begin healing. Most people do this once every couple of weeks to a month, not more often, because the scalp needs time to recover between sessions. Once that door is open, what you apply matters. One option that's gained attention in research is topical melatonin. Beyond its more familiar role in sleep, melatonin appears to act as a strong antioxidant when applied to the scalp and may help support the follicle environment, which is why applying it at night, right before bed, makes practical sense anyway. If you want to layer on more, rosemary oil has been studied head-to-head against the common hair loss medication, and in a trial spanning several months with over 100 participants, it came close to matching those results without the side effects often reported with that medication. Saw palmetto has shown promising results in multiple clinical trials as well, and pumpkin seed oil, taken orally, has been linked to meaningful increases in hair density in at least one randomized trial. One more thing worth mentioning: stress. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, makes insulin resistance worse, which means chronic stress can quietly feed this entire cycle. A lot of people notice hair loss months after a stressful period, not immediately, which makes the connection easy to miss. If that sounds familiar, the basics still apply here. Consistent sleep, daily walks, and adequate intake of B vitamins can all support your body's ability to handle stress without it spilling over into your scalp. So here's where that leaves you. Hair loss isn't really about a missing product. It's about a blocked pathway. Scar tissue builds the wall, insulin resistance builds the scar tissue, and most remedies fail simply because they never get past that barrier. Tomorrow, pick one starting point. Either book yourself a microneedling session or take your first step toward lowering your carb intake. Small, but it's the kind of step that actually moves the needle. Which of these factors, the scar tissue, the insulin connection, or the stress link, surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments, because in the next video, I'm going to break down exactly how to structure a low-carb, intermittent fasting routine that supports this process without making your life miserable. And if this kind of research-based breakdown is useful to you, subscribing means you won't miss it. This video is based on current research and personal experience, not a substitute for medical advice. If you're dealing with significant hair loss, it's worth talking to a doctor who can look at your specific situation.